I'm supposed to be doing announcements right now, but I can't really find any that important. So one thing that I will tell you is just be in prayer about the things that are going on downtown at the church office right now. The past 2 evenings in a row, we've had a great turnout. Not evenings, Saturday was during the daytime, but Friday night and Saturday we were there for some of the Christmas stuff going on. And it's just been a real blessing to see how many people we can impact in just a few hours downtown. So just be in prayer about that, especially for anyone who's down there during Sunday mornings who are leading all them. Be in prayer about that. Also, I was supposed to tell you that at the end of service, there's still a bunch of donuts down in the building, so take them, because if you don't, I have to eat them, and then that just won't be good. Especially when I'm trying to eat healthier and stuff, so please take those. Even if you need to get bags down there, just go ahead and take bags of them with you. So if the praise team would like to come up, we'll go ahead and get rolling on.
There's revival, and it's spreading. We're like a wildfire in my heart. Sunday morning, hallelujah, and it's lasting all week long. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? It's this rhythm of a gospel song. Once you choose it, you can't lose it. There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. I've got an old church choir singing in my soul. I've got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I've got a heart overflowing 'cause I've been restored. There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. Oh, there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. In the valleys that I wander, turn to mountains that I can't climb. You are with me, never leave me. 'Cause there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. I got an old church choir singing in my soul. I got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I got a heart overflowing 'cause I've been restored. There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. No, there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. Clap your hands and stomp your feet till you find that gospel beat, 'cause it's all you'll ever need, all you'll ever need. Clap your hands and stomp your feet till you find that gospel beat, 'cause it's all you'll ever need, all you'll ever need. I got an old church choir singing in my soul. I've got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I got an old church choir singing in my soul.
these pieces, broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken. I've been set free, I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take our failures, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to
At this time, I'll call the ushers forward to help with the offering. pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you once again for the opportunity to be here this morning, Lord. We just thank you for the blessings that you've given all of these teens, their talents and their gifts that they're able to use in front of everyone this morning. And we just ask you to bless this offering and just help all the gifts to be given as something to you, Lord, and not because we have to, but because we want to, Lord. Something that we take out of our own self and give it back to you because you alone deserve it. We just ask you to bless the remainder of this service and the time that we have here together. In your name, amen. All right, at this time, I just want to give a little bit of thanks to a few people before we actually get into the message that I have for you guys this morning. So, one person's actually in the nursery, but if I could have Pastor Doug and Cindy come up here, and then my parents, and then Brian on behalf of Brian and Holly. As these guys come up here, these people specifically, I'm trying not to get emotional, have helped me a lot since I started this journey with the youth, whether it be filling in for me in Sunday school when I can't be here, or just being guidance to me as I'm trying to learn how to do this. It's not been the most easy. And just my parents specifically for always being there when I need them to be, and just questions that I have that maybe I can't answer for myself. My dad's obviously back there running sound, so he can't be up here. But it's just been a lot easier for me to be able to do this with these people, and just them being able to grow and see some of the difference that the kids have made in their lives. And I know my mom wanted to say something while she was up here, so I guess the green one. But yeah, it's on.
Okay. No, push it. Here you go.
All right, this is really out of my comfort zone to be up here talking.
You are
I know, just a little bit. But I really wanted to share just a couple minutes because Dave and I started helping with the youth probably, I don't know, about 2 years ago. And I know when we were first approached about helping, I was like, I don't know, I don't really like teenagers. I'm more comfortable with the little ones. But I tell you what, this group of kids has really changed my attitude on the teens. I'm not saying this because Drew's in charge. This is a great group of youth. They're just amazing. I mean, our kids were involved with youth groups before where you still have bullying and they don't get along. This group actually, they truly care about each other. They encourage each other. They're constantly, like texting each other throughout the week, finding out how, if they had a test coming up, like how did it go, like how did work go. They're just awesome. And I know, like, over the summer, Austin was gone for a while because he was working at Rhodes Grove. And I remember that night that he came back. And when he walked in, like, the room just erupted because Austin's back. They truly love each other. And I've really gotten to know a lot of them really well over the past year. And they're just a great, great group of kids. So if you haven't had a chance to, like, get to know them, come hang out with us on a Sunday night. And actually, he has an all-nighter coming up in a couple weeks, so if you don't have anything to do, we could use some adult help through the night. So that's, the 8th and the 9th?
Mm-hmm. I need help from midnight to 7 a.m. specifically, so
Yeah,
If you guys want to fill in any of that time frame,
yeah, come hang out.
2 to 7, the kids are typically starting to kind of doze off a little bit. So if you can't handle the crazy part of it, that's the time to come. I know it's early to get out of bed for some of you, and or late to stay up, whichever way. But I do need help with that. So.
Yeah, and kids, we might have some nacho cheese that night. That's an inside joke.
If any of you wanted to say anything, if not, you're not obligated. But.
Well, I'm going to say this. I prayed for you over there, and I got very emotional. It is my hope that you all want to grow. And I'm not perfect, but I will give you whatever I can to help. But you gotta want it. I can't make you do that. You gotta want it. And I promise you, though I'm not perfect, I will do whatever I can do to help you. And this is what it's so important for the young people to know. See, a lot of churches aren't teaching this. What happens now in your life matters. The decisions you're making today will set you up for the rest of your life. And God can get you over, and I know He cares. He went to school to be a missionary. And I looked him in the eye and I said to him, this is a mission here. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you guys. But I want all of us to be on this shared journey. I can't follow that.
Right. So I do have a little thank you for you guys. But just thank you guys for sharing. And just thank you all specifically for your help. It's been much appreciated, so give it to the boss. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Whew, okay. We have a little drama type thing we're going to do real quick for you guys. So those involved with that, if you want to come up. Sure, no problem.
What are, I don't wait. What are you reading?
Oh, just a book on the modern theories of evolution, you know. This kind of stuff's kind of always entertained me a little bit.
So what about evolution do you find the most interesting?
I specifically enjoy studying the way that humans have come to be what we are today. Through the process of survival of the fittest, we're only becoming more of a better race of humans.
So you're saying that evolution explains what we as humans are supposed to be?
Of course. We're all in the process of changing through experiences that we have had, and we will have. Each one of these experiences has led us to adaptation, eventually making us the best that we can possibly be.
So basically, you think that we are all on a journey to our best life. If that is so, what is our purpose?
Well, what do you mean purpose? We don't really have a purpose, and I wouldn't say we're really on a journey to our best life, but we're parts of this journey that is yet to be complete. Basically, we are a link on a chain that isn't complete yet. We're here to live and die, and to help the human race eventually flourish.
Well, as a Christian, I believe that we do, in fact, have purpose. However, I think that we are on a journey to our best life. We will die here too, but our best life happens after we die.
Really? How do you think that's so? With evolution, we just merely live and die. Nothing happens afterwards.
Well, we believe that God created us to be more like Him. So in this process, we are constantly learning to be more and more like Him. And we do think that something happens when we die. So if you trust God, the best life that you are trying to explain is only attained in heaven with Him. So how do you think we get to our best life?
I can't say really that I've ever thought about it. I guess I've just assumed that I will never reach it because evolution is always making me change. But I guess I must assume that life I have right now is my best until it changes again.
Well, your life is definitely changing. Have you ever thought that maybe someone has made this a plan for your life, like someone in control of everything that happens?
I'd have to say that I've thought that maybe sometimes, but I always push it away because it just doesn't make much sense that someone could control my life. We all make choices on our own, and only the best survive, typically.
Well, I would like to think that person you were thinking about is God. I mean, He created each and every one of us, so it only makes sense that our Creator would be in control of the things that happen to us, don't you think?
I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. I've never really seen that as a possibility before. But if that's true, why do bad things still happen?
If you look at bad through God's eyes, we have to understand that we are born into a life where we are going to do wrong. That started from the first man and woman alive. We're going to make bad choices that lead to bad events. However, we can learn something from each bad event. Since God would be the model of perfect, He's giving us a taste of how bad things could be without Him, allowing us to really get a glimpse of how perfect He actually is.
That actually makes sense. So you're saying that since God is so perfect, that we can't ever actually know what He is like, so He just shows us how bad we really are, like in an effort to show us how great He actually must be?
Exactly.
Then tell me more. All right. Just leave that. It's fine. All kind of gather around, but we're kind of full this morning. So I'm going to actually do my message sitting down because I want to give you guys the most accurate representation of how I would be with the youth. So this is something that we've been going over with for a while now. And the topic that we're going to be speaking on this morning is apologetics. So this might be something that you aren't necessarily the most comfortable with, and or you might not even have a clue what it is. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you is to understand that this is going to be more of like a question and response type of message, because again, this is how I do it with the youth. I want you to be able to see exactly how I would prepare something for them and how it would go. So they've already heard this message as preparation to kind of help us spur on some of the things if I can't get you guys to respond. But just try to play along with me. We'll be asking questions, and I'm going to want you guys to respond as much as you can. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So apologetics, what is one of the words, like, or any words that come to your head when you think about the word apologetics? So someone said sorry. I heard someone say apology. Defense. Anything else? So these are actually all good words that actually have a lot to do with apologetics. Apologetics comes from a Greek word called apologia, which means to give a defense or response for something that someone asks you. So there's a few ground principles that go with this. So I'm going to actually sit down now because I said I was going to. But so if you guys can't see, you can move forward if you're comfortable with that. If not, I understand. So some of the few ground principles that we have to look at with apologetics is that not everyone is going to believe what you actually believe. So when you talk to everyone, like we just did in this skit, it might not be natural to obviously go up to someone and just say, hey, do you mind if we take a seat and start talking religion? That's not going to be something that you think about doing on a normal basis, right? Most of us would just try to find a seat at Starbucks. I know for me at college it was kind of hard because we all wanted to go to Starbucks, but when you take 20 people from the same school into a Starbucks that has 15 seats, sometimes you got to sit with somebody you might not know. And these all present opportunities to share the gospel. And why is this important, you might ask? Well, if you're on board with where the church is going, we all need to be out there sharing with what we know and sharing the gospel with everyone we come in contact with. And these kind of settings, whether it be a coffee shop or you're at a bookstore or you're just downtown at the office, anytime that you come in contact with somebody, you're that example. You might be that only person they ever meet that they hear the gospel from. So it's not that we're having to sit here presenting the whole gospel, but we need to give them a little bit of it at a time. So just asking questions and responding is some of the things that I've taught some of the teens how to do, because we actually just wrapped up this whole series on apologetics. So this is just a glimpse at what they learned. But so going off of that thought that not everyone believes what you believe, even among Christians, we all have disagreements, right? That's why we have so many different denominations and so many backgrounds. There's things within each denomination that we might not agree on. So we have to be able to defend what we believe to know is true. And if we get confused with what other people are throwing at us, how are we going to accurately defend what we believe? And with that, you're going to enter conflict at some point for your faith. And I'll pause here real quick. All this stuff that's popping up, I do have copies of this if you guys want to take it home. So at the end, I'll make that possible for you guys. But going into conflict for your faith, that's where apologetics at its basis needs to come into play. So if you're entering conflict and you just sit there and you're like, I don't know what's going on, you're really not going to be that light that we're supposed to be, right? Going amongst the theme that we've had for this year, being the light amongst the darkness, how are we going to be that light if we just sit there and don't have a response? So the whole goal of apologetics is to be able to give you a basis of things that you can say and or ask questions. And that's the big thing that I taught you youth, right, was that we don't necessarily have to make statements. We can just ask questions. And that's kind of what they were doing, during that skit. They were asking questions, but then giving responses as to what they believe, allowing me to ask questions about my own fake religion that I portrayed up here. It allows a conversation to continue. But most importantly, that you're still going to have people that are going to disagree with you even when you do ask these questions or you come into conversation with that. And that's okay, because it says that any kind of interaction that we have with anyone regarding the gospel should be a success. It's something that we shouldn't be scared of, something that anytime we talk to anyone about the gospel, whether we know that they're saved or not, we planted a seed. And that's our job, is to plant the seed of the gospel. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do downtown right now, too. And going on with that, some of the things that, like I was saying, to be in prayer about that downtown, excuse me real quick, is that the amount of people that have come through there in the past couple of events that we've had, probably, I wasn't there for the Chamber of Thrilling Secrets, but I know that one was like 500 plus people through there. But even just Friday night and Saturday, we've had hundreds of people come through in just those few short hours. And think about that amount of time that we've had with each one of them, maybe 5-10 minutes tops. But in that time, if we can share just a little glimpse of the gospel, that could be the only part that they hear. And that little bit can be enough to spur on their thought process. So going into the whole basis of this, then apologetics can be defined as the practice of answering questions and defending the truth. So that's ultimately what I'm going to try to get you guys to see a little bit of this morning. I'm going to have some of my teens, if they want to. These verses are ones that we've already gone over. So I'll pass you guys the microphone. The first verse that kind of goes along with this whole theme is 1 Peter 3:15. They'll actually be up on the screen. So do we have that green microphone laying up here? So if one of you would like to read this out loud.
But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect. 1 Peter 3:15.
So I think one of the things, we've all probably heard this verse before, but in the ESV, I found it interesting that at the end of this, that when we're always being prepared to give a defense, it's not something that needs to be negative. Defense can sometimes have a negative connotation to it, a negative meaning. But at the end, the very last part of it says, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And that's ultimately wanted to get all these kids at. We have these misconstrued ideas about different religions that we talked about. We talked about Buddhism and Muslims, and we all have these radical ideas about all of these people, but in reality, they're just people like you and I. So we don't have to be able to give like a negative connotation to the word defense. We have to be able to defend what we believe in a respectful manner. So it was something that we talked about you have to be able to honor what they believe. A belief system is inherited most of the time, and it's something that they may or may not be comfortable with sharing for themselves. But if we say, hey, I'll be willing to listen to what you have to say and then respond to it with what I believe, it makes a conversation a lot easier to go along with, rather than us just throwing out what we call a gospel burp, throwing it down their throat and saying, if you don't believe this, you're going to go to hell. And that's the misconstrued idea that we have, that, we have to get someone to be saved that minute we reach them. And that's not actually what has to happen. That can happen over time. And doing this through the process of apologetics, hopefully that'll build a connection with these people, and that you'll be able to meet with them on and on and on over time. But if not, you still have to remember that it was a success that you shared the faith with them, even for a few minutes. So why is apologetics important then? You might be sitting here wondering that. So a lot of us are actually born into what we call a blind faith. Remember how I just said that sometimes faith is inherited? So this is one of these things that a lot of you in here have probably been raised in a Christian home since the time that you've been born. You've either gone to church all your life, or you've just gone to church here and there. You've always heard the different stories. And oftentimes what you believe is inherited from that, because I know for me, I could say, personally, I always was, you're going to church Sunday and Wednesday. That's just what we did. You always did that. You inherited that belief system because your parents did it, right? And a lot of us, I think, can probably say that. Some of us not really, but most of us, I could say in this room, have probably been raised in the church. So we don't necessarily know what our values and beliefs are until we make it personal to ourselves. So you end up having the same values and beliefs not because you thought about it, but because they were given to you. So through this process of apologetics, the idea was to get them all to own their own belief system and then be able to share that with other people. So if someone asks you what you believe, if you're stuck in this blind faith, you might not be able to explain to them exactly why. So how many of you in here have seen the movie The Waterboy? Okay. It's not the most appropriate movie, Adam Sandler, but we're going to reference it. So one of the lines in there, his teacher is asking him why alligators are especially aggressive. So in his character, he responds, I'm going to try to do his voice, which I'm not very good at it, but he says, Mama said alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrushes. So we can't come up with answers, well, my mom said this or my mom said that. They want to hear from us personally why we believe what we believe and why we think that. So if we're sitting there and that kind of mama said, that's not going to work with those kinds of people, right? Most of them are just going to be like, well, this guy's weird. I don't want to talk to him. So we have to be able to own what we believe. And then it's unhelpful when people are searching for answers, come to you looking to understand what Christianity is, if you just sit there and you don't know why you believe what you believe. So being able to own that and give a defense for something that you believe it and you hold to it is of utmost importance. And then as you begin to figure out what you believe and you hold to it, there's probably going to be some doubts along the way. I know this is something that I talk to them specifically about because I know at this age group, it's one of those times where you're trying to figure out, do I believe this or do I not? And the teen years is those times that is crucial because they're either going to stick with Christianity or they're going to walk away from it. So having these doubts in that time, sometimes we think that doubts are bad, but I don't like to think of them as either good or bad. Doubts are just there because it's something that can lead us to examine things deeper and have our beliefs grow stronger. So instead of focusing on the negative of these doubts, that's the time that we need to be focusing in on, sometimes we have those doubts that we're afraid to ask or to share with people, but we don't want to look stupid, and if I ask a question, someone might think I'm dumb. That's not actually what it's like. Asking questions of those people like mentors or teachers or even pastors, anyone who you know is strong in the Christian faith, those doubts can be answered and they can actually make you stronger. So it's actually normal to have doubts through this process of apologetics, like, am I doing something right? Or, do I actually believe this? I'm not quite sure. Those are normal, so they're not things that we should see as something bad, but they're not always good either. So you have to be able to see that, there's things that you have to outweigh within these. But a lot of times, the good can come from studying it and helping either someone else understand it. You can actually build your own doubts and say, okay, I actually believe this because I'm seeing that it makes sense to other people as I'm sharing it to them. So apologetics is just not a one-way street. It's something that it can actually grow you while you're helping to grow somebody else. So this is something that I wanted to study a lot more in school. I actually had a whole class on just apologetics that I took through a guy who has a doctorate in this stuff. So he's pretty good at it. And he always said, to this day, when he's sharing with somebody the gospel, he still has doubts. But that's normal. That's something that we're supposed to be growing on. But if we leave them unanswered, those doubts are just going to grow stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's important to find those people that you can get to share those with and build that doubt into a strong belief instead. So we're going to look at an example, and obviously we're going to look at Jesus, because why not look at the best example of apologetics within the Bible? So we're going to look at Jesus as an apologist. So as you read the Gospels, you find that Jesus is actually in argument with people a lot, but not an argument in the sense that we believe argument to be. Arguing means that he was defending what he believed and what he meant to be true for everyone and what he wanted them to believe. But he's constantly answering the questions that people have and refuting the misunderstanding and providing evidence for what is actually true. But his goal isn't to win the battle, it's just to provide the truth, understanding, and ultimately faith in the end. So we're going to look at John 24 through 29. So if somebody wants to read these out as they come up. Can I get a volunteer for my youth? Thank you.
Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. John 20:24.
So let's just keep these rolling then, bud. It goes all the way through 29.
So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the nails, and place my hand into his side, I will never believe." John 20:25.
8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." John 20:26.
Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." John 20:27.
And I'll take the last two here. So Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." And then Jesus responded to him, and he said, "Have you believed me because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen me and yet believed." So in this time, you can see that even though Thomas was having doubts that Jesus was who he said he was, Jesus, what doesn't he do? Well, first, he doesn't make fun of him. He doesn't call him out and embarrass him in front of the other disciples. And he doesn't call him stupid and review the facts that he had told him before, that he needed to die, because little precept to this part where he's talking with Thomas, he's already told them, "I need to die, but I'll be back." And Thomas is still having these doubts even when Jesus comes back. But Jesus, instead of saying, "You're dumb, you don't believe me," he physically tells him, "Come and see the fact that I have these nails, the holes in my hand and in my side." But we have to be able to give people evidence for Jesus, though he's not here. Because at the end of that verse it says, "Blessed is the man who believes yet not sees." So that's our job. We can't physically bring Jesus to these people in person form, but we can bring them through us. So we have to be that example for them, that evidence that they're looking for. But Jesus, what he does do is that he gave evidence to Thomas, and he gave him a reason to believe. So if we give enough evidence to back what we say we believe, ultimately it's going to start making a little bit more sense. And one of the things we talked about, especially with, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, I was supposed to be an atheist during that little bit of time we sat up here and talked about that. And atheism is becoming one of those stronger religions within the United States where people just don't know what they want to believe, so they just pick atheism because they don't have to believe in anything really. But they have these ideas that are sometimes irrational. So thinking that we don't have a purpose, everyone ultimately thinks that we have some sort of purpose, something we're living for. So I don't know if you guys caught up the fact that I said, well, we don't really have a purpose. But then in the same skit, I'm saying, well, our purpose is to help the human race evolve and flourish. So they have these ideas that they say they don't believe, but somewhere within there, God is still pulling at their heart and saying, but we do have a purpose for something. So everyone, I gave an example of this. It's like, have you guys ever had a beach ball? You know which one I'm talking about? Like you can get them at the Dollar Store, you blow them up, and you try to hold them underneath the water in a pool or something. They don't stay under for very long, right? No matter how strong you think you are, this tiny little ball will shoot right back up to the surface. So that them pushing those beliefs aside and those things that God's tugging at their heart saying, there is a purpose, there's a reason for this. They try to hold that beach ball down, but eventually it has to come up. And when it comes up, it's going to come up so quick that it might scare them and they try to push it back down. So that's what you're going to encounter when you're trying to share the gospel with these people, that they might accidentally let something slip like, oh, but see, right there, what you just said, that made sense. But you say it doesn't, but you just said it anyway. So we have to be able to give people an evidence, a reason to believe something that they might actually already have in the back of their head, but they just refuse to believe it and they keep pushing it under the surface. So ultimately what we can see from this process of apologetics is that Christianity isn't a blind faith. God always gives us testimony, evidence for who we are, who He is, and what we should believe. So through this process, I would typically close it out. Typically this is 20 minutes. We just went through 20 minutes, whether you believe it or not. I just wanted to give you guys the most accurate representation of what a youth service would be like. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. This is where I need you guys to help kind of respond some of this. So at the end, I always try to give them a few questions. So one of the things that I want to ask you is, what are the questions and doubts that you have heard or had about Christianity? So anyone in the room? Something that's popular within Christianity today. And if you guys can't think of one, I'll get you started. Yeah, if you want to run the mic. One that I'm going to get you started is, if Christians are supposed to be so good, why are there so many hypocrites within the church? That's something you hear all the time. So I'm not going to answer these yet, but I will.
I don't know if this really counts as one, but when a couple live together instead of get married, and they say, well, it's the same thing. It's just not the piece of paper. Sometimes I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So, Mara has one.
A lot of things that I have talked to my non-Christian friends about is that if God is so good and God is all-powerful, then why is there so much crap going on in the world? Why?
Yeah. So that's actually one that we talked about, is, why God is allowing bad things. And I don't know if you guys caught up on that a little bit in that little bit of a skit. And the way that I tried to answer that to them, and the way that I learned about it, was that God allows so much bad to show us how bad we truly are as people. And He's the exact opposite of all that bad. So He shows us how bad we truly are because He's so perfect that we can never understand it. Does that make sense to you guys? Kind of. So He shows us the extreme opposite because we can never understand how perfect He is. So that's something that's taken them a little while to understand. I think some of them are kind of catching on to that, understanding that, there's all these bad things that are going to happen because God is so perfect and we can't understand it. But because we're fallen people and we fall into this, we have to be able to understand that God is going to show us, this is how bad you really are. You guys aren't doing what I want you to do. And so that kind of comes along with that. Anyone else have anything? Cheyenne?
Some of my friends, because I'm in AP biology right now, so all we talk about is evolution, and a lot of them, they can't comprehend how God created the world. Mm-hmm. It's all about different bacteria got together and formed, and they just don't believe that God made all of this.
Okay, and the way that I would respond to that is, and I think we've talked about this a little before, is well, where did that bacteria come from? And a lot of them can't find the real start to all of this, and they say, well, these different things collided within the universe and they caused a Big Bang. Well, where did those different particles come from? A lot of times you can't find someone to give you a solid answer on that, whereas we have a solid answer that says we know God was always there and He created the very first of everything. We're one of the only religions, in fact, the only religion that has an example, a starting point of actual creation aside from God, where we came to be, where the earth came to be, where everything came to be. Whereas when you think about evolution in as far as scientific basis, they don't have a start for those bacteria. They don't have a start for any of those dust particles that they believe collided together. They can't give you an exact starting point. Obviously, we can't give them an exact starting date either, but we can say, God spoke, and there it was. And that's how we started. So, Anyone else? All right. You have one?
I've had, excuse me, people ask me about with what I'm going through. They said, why do you have to go through that when you are a Christian and you this and that? And I said, but why not?
Mm-hmm. So that goes along with kind of the bad things too that we were talking about. That's one that I've actually always struggled with, and I'll be flat out honest with that, is like why God allows certain people to get sick, or why. I know a big one too that I was hoping somebody would say was, why does God take babies away? Why does God allow that kind of thing to happen? And sometimes those are the answers. It's okay to say, I don't know. People are going to be more understanding if you sit there and you say, I don't know, than you sit there and try to come up with an answer that doesn't make sense to them. Saying I don't know only shows that you're human just like they are. They don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. And I think what's actually been really inspiring as far as you dealing with your health, it's just been to see that you're always in good spirit. It hasn't caused you, at least from what I can see, what happens at home, that's you. But when you're out with everybody else, you're still Cindy. You're still that happy, smiling face that says hello to everybody. So allowing you to go through that, I think sometimes we have to see, even with sickness, I think about one of the examples that I gave, and I hope it doesn't make my grandmother emotional, that one of the things that we talked about was my grandfather. I don't know how many of you actually knew him, but I didn't really know him when he wasn't sick. He was always sick when I knew him. And it was something that, even though we had to deal with that as a family and something, we never want to see a loved one pass away, it's made my grandmother so much stronger, I think, and her example of what it should be to be a Christian to me has been seen through that, and just allowing to see how much, if you look at her Bible, it's torn up. It's one that, she uses it. And it has allowed me to see that, sometimes these things happen to allow us to become stronger as individuals. And it's something that I still, that's my answer for that, a personal answer to that. So I'm going to get off of this because I'm going to get emotional. But so through some of those questions, how many of you could actually say you were comfortable? Which one of those questions that people ask, would you be comfortable giving an answer that quickly on? Probably not most of them, right? So the idea was that I started building off of this, and I'm actually going to start a small group on this. So if you guys are interested in learning more about it, we actually talked about some of these things. So some of the questions that we answered was, why is apologetics important for youth and adults? What do you think it takes to be a good apologist? The questions that we would feel comfortable answering, and then how would you answer them? So we talked about this for, probably a good 2 months, something that we covered in detail. They have a whole folder of notes that I gave them that they have on this, and I feel confident that each one of them could share the gospel with their friends based on some of the things that we talked about. The ending lesson, you guys remember, I pretended to be an atheist. We read a story, and I had you guys respond to that story. And if you ask any of them about it, I'm sure that they could give you an answer quickly now. So the whole idea of apologetics is that if you don't know, you're going to say you don't know. But if you do know, you need to defend it in a way that's respectful of the other religions. So that's what a typical youth Sunday night kind of message would be. But we're not done. So thank you guys for listening to that. At this time, before we start getting into a closing, the junior and senior high youth, can you come up here? Especially if you think you're going with me on a trip soon. Okay. So, I guess, Mom, you can come up here too, because you'll be going with us. So, this is the first that maybe even Pastor Doug and Cindy have heard about this. We are actually planning a trip as the youth to kind of get some practice with our apologetic stuff. We are going to be taking a trip to Belize in June. So the junior and senior high youth are going to be coming with me. I've already been there. This is where I did my practicum for my degree. So we just ask you to be in prayer for us as we start kind of planning some of this. It's going to come faster than we think. And I'm also going to need some help as far as different ways that we can raise funds, so be in prayer for that as well. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a precept that, yeah, we're going to go on a missions trip, and it's something big that I know that these guys are excited about. So just be in prayer for us. We are going to have a few different things here and there, ways that we can raise funds to take them. So just be in prayer for that, and prayer for me as I'm trying to plan it. I've never really planned a missions trip before, so this is kind of cool. But yeah, I thank you so much for being here. We're going to close out in one song, and then if you guys want these papers that I have filled out, I don't have enough for all of you. I'm sorry, I had a problem with the copier. But I can take your name down and get them to you. I have copies of all those notes for the sermon, and some of the kids can give them to you. So if you guys want that, actually, before we do a song, just go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll have them pass it out to you. If not, I can just leave them at the door, and you can get them on the way out, either way, if that's better. Okay, you guys want to start passing them out? I'll just pass them. So yeah, I'll be starting a small group on this sometime here, probably in the new year, because right now with work, it's a little bit chaotic. For those of you that don't know, I work a full-time job at FedEx too, so a little busy season right now. But so we'll have the small group either here or at the downtown office the last available Wednesday. I'll let you guys know as that's coming up. But we'll go through this and then through the religions topics that I talked with them about, how to defend your faith through different religions as well. So as they get this done, if you guys can help me move the chairs real quick out of the way. Yeah. And if the praise team could come up for the last song. So as we get ready to sing this last song, this kind of goes along with the whole theme of, I don't know if you guys noticed from the beginning when we started singing the first song, it's all about how the gospel has changed our life. I just ask that you guys take these words to heart and not just sing them. Think about how much the gospel has changed your life and how it can change someone else. So if you guys would stand with us and we'll sing the last song.
Generation, we're turning over every stone, hoping to find salvation in a world that's left us cold. Can we get back to the altar, back to the arms of our first love? There's only one way to the Father, and He's calling out to us. To the captive, it looks like freedom. The orphan, it feels like home. To the skeptic, it might sound crazy to believe in a God who loves. In a world where our hearts are breaking and we're lost in the mess we've made, like a blinding light in the dead of night, it's the gospel that makes a way. Oh.
thank you again for today, and just thank you for the opportunity to be able to share with the congregation some of the things that we've been doing as a youth group and some of the things that we've been learning. I just ask you to touch the hearts of each individual and just help them to be able to see how important it is that we are to be that example for you no matter where we're at and no matter how much time we have with each individual we come in contact with. We just thank you again for this opportunity to be in charge of a whole service and just express some of the talents and gifts that we have and just the things that we've been learning. Lord, just keep us all safe as we go home and bring us back next week. In your name, amen. You guys are dismissed.